graduated, elevated. Now it's my time to shine. Yeah, let's go. Major moves, power moves. Take it to the top one time, non-stop.
Hello, Abiola, and welcome to Ph.D. Heart Talk. Could you please introduce yourself, your university, and what you're researching?
Oh, well, thank you so much, and nice to meet you, Noma. Abiola Lawal, like you have introduced. I'm a PhD student at Purdue University, Indiana, United States, and my research is based on animal nutrition, specifically nutritional physiology of monogastric animals. And when I say monogastric animals, I mean simple stomached animals like pigs and chickens, and yeah. So that's what I do. I basically check how these animals digest the feed we give to them, and now it helps them with different processes in the body. I'll call them metabolic and biological processes. So that's basically what I do. And thank you for having me.
Lovely. No, thank you for saying yes. So the first question is just a simple question. Why did you apply for a PhD?
Oh, wow. That's kind of interesting. Well, I've as a child, I've always wanted to be a university professor because I have like three of my uncles who are professors.
Oh, wow.
So yes, I've always felt like, okay, I think I want to be a professor and I love to teach. So that's just kind of, it just felt so, natural to go into that field, having like examples or mentors ahead of me, and also finding myself that I like to impact the knowledge. So I felt like, okay, I'll always have my PhD. So I know I have a PhD since I was in high school. So,
Wow.
after my bachelor's, I opted for master's, and after my master's, I worked briefly. I resigned my job because it has always been part of the plan to eventually earn a PhD. So for me, it's not like an accidental thing. It was very natural.
Oh, wow. So, you know how we've got all these motivational speakers, and basically what they say is you need to have a vision board, put it there, manifest it, say it
Yeah.
out loud every day, you'll get it. Was that the route, or you just knew it? You were like, this is mine and I'm going to work hard, and that's it.
Yeah, honestly, I think different people's journey can differ a little bit. For me, I'm probably one of the very lucky ones to know what they really want to do from a very young age. So as an high schooler, I would tell my parents that, oh, I'll be a professor in future. And, a lot of my friends from high school, even university, for my undergraduate degree, they'll call me professor. I've always knew that I wanted to do this. So it wasn't really about speaking into existence. Of course, I had my own challenges and things like that, some rejections here and there. But I always knew that this is something I would do. So it wasn't really about writing it. I didn't have a vision board. I just knew it in my head that this is what I want to do and I'm gonna achieve it no matter what. So it was very natural, and it was a vision I had since I was a child. So yeah.
Oh, no, thank you very much for sharing. So, you know, with the application process, you mentioned that it wasn't easy because I've had a few questions in terms of relocation. So there's somebody, she really wants to relocate from Nigeria and she wants to go to Canada or the US, and she
Okay.
wants to do her PhD, but she's been rejected constantly. I think I've known her now for about 14 months because of her questions. You know,
Yeah.
she's like, I got rejected again. They offered me, I think one of the positions they offered her, but they didn't tell her that it wasn't a scholarship. She had to self-fund. So obviously, when you've got the place, you're excited, then you realize I have to pay.
Yeah.
And she was like, I can't afford it. So what advice do you have for somebody who really wants it, just like you, and she's really working hard, to ensure that she gets a place, but it's just not happening?
Well, very good question. I would say it's, for the most part, it boils down to profile and
Okay.
the pool of applicants for per year.
Mhm.
So sometimes the pool of applicants is kind of favorable to some candidates, especially when we had COVID, maybe because not many people applied, and you are able to just get into the school of your dreams. But
Mm.
sometimes you have very excellent candidates that applied, not because you are not good, but just because the application pool was a very strong one,
Mhm.
and they had to take the standard high a little bit more before they
Mhm.
give out applications. So when it comes to that, I've had a fair deal of rejection myself. My first PhD application cycle, I was rejected. I applied to, I think, 9 schools, and I
Mm.
was rejected. And so I went back to the drawing board. I felt like, okay, I wouldn't just send in applications blindly. I looked at my profile and I kind of compared myself to other applicants, and I discovered that, okay, I am weak in certain things. My profile was weak. What can I do to improve my profile? So I opted to write exams like GRE.
Mhm.
I'd written TOEFL, test of English as a foreign language before. I wrote it again just to have
Mm.
a better score. And
Mm.
once I did that, I submitted applications. Those two factors, boosted my profile. I had a relatively stronger profile because of a very good GRE score and TOEFL score. So I
Mm.
did that. The other thing I did was to reach out to professors.
Mhm.
And I reached out to professors, sent cold emails out. And the other thing I think one might do is to look at their undergraduate degree and
Mhm.
maybe try to apply to fields that are very related to what you did as an undergraduate. I mentioned
Mm.
that because, my undergraduate degree is in animal sciences, and my
Mhm.
master's degree is in environmental science. And
Mm.
I love both a lot, and
Mhm.
both are kind of helping me with what I'm doing right now. However, when I applied for environmental science programs, I discovered that other candidates that had environmental science as their undergraduate degree were preferred. So I kind
Mm.
of think, what can I do? So I applied for animal science for my PhD, in which what I'm doing right now is an intersect of environmental science and animal science. But
Mhm.
sometimes you might just fit better into a field, perhaps maybe your undergraduate field, than maybe what you had in your master's. So
Mm.
you must also make sure you are not applying to the wrong programs. I mean the wrong program in the sense that maybe that program you are not so strong, you are not really a strong candidate for that program, and you may want to just apply for a program in which you are a very strong candidate. And of course, all these exams like GRE and TOEFL can also boost your profile. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. That is very insightful because I spoke to Nikunj, who's in India, and he applied until he had depression. So he spent 2 years to a point whereby now he's figured out the system, which is they have scholarships and they have to allocate to maybe two UK nationals and one foreign person. So to get into that group, it takes a lot, which is what you're saying. And he said it took him a long time, but dealing with rejection, especially when you have a family, he said is quite depressive because you're the breadwinner for your family, but at the same time you have a passion and you're really excited. So thank you very much for sharing. The next question is, how did you identify your research gap? You say you were passionate, but you realized actually that's not working for me. So how did you identify your research gap for the topic?
Oh, thank you. Well, that came from knowledge of both fields, animal science, environmental science. And if you look at it critically, agriculture is one of the main causes of pollution around the world, especially the animal production. When you think about the feces from animal production, the feathers from animal production, the a bunch of things, even blood when animals are being slaughtered for food. And you look into that and you ask the question, like I personally asked a question like, how can we reduce this waste? What can we do to reduce this waste? So of course, I'm dealing with animal production, but I'm also looking at how to reduce waste from animal operations. Like most times we have like nitrogen excretion, nitrogen from feces. We have phosphorus pollution from feces. So those were my kind of thought process. Like, I'm coming from environmental science. I'm not just dealing with production of animals. I want us to produce animals, but I also want us to produce it in a sustainable way. So the way I identified my research gap is, okay, environmental science gave me a knowledge of sustainability, and animal science gave me a knowledge of production. So how can I match these two? How can we produce in a way that is sustainable? So that is how I identified my research gap. And truth be told, the world is moving in a direction that we will encourage production, but in a sustainable way. We want to produce, but we also want to conserve, the ecosystem and, the mother earth itself. So yeah, that's the way I identified my research gap.
That's quite interesting. When you say sustainability.
Yeah.
So linking into what you said in terms of your process of applying for your PhD to whereby, you're where you are now, how do you ensure, from your perspective, looking at chickens and pigs, that we're very sustainable? Because we'll take, let's say, Asian countries, certain Asian countries, farming of pigs is like the way of life. And will they have the same resilience and also awareness when it comes to sustainability, because they need to eat? It's just a product that comes in and goes out because people need to eat. So are you looking, what's your focus? Is it just the US, or are you looking at Nigeria in terms of back home, or are you looking at the world in terms of sustainability?
Well, typically I like to have the global view of things.
Okay.
And like you have rightly mentioned, these countries are at different phases when it comes to sustainability. Some countries or some part of the world are kind of ahead, depending on, who is judging and who is looking, or who is kind of trying to determine where these countries are. At the end of the day, that's why we try as much as possible to publish our findings, hoping that people from this country, especially in open access journals, hoping that folks from these countries, they have the opportunity to like perhaps download or get a copy of our publications, and they can read and go through it. And, farmers, pig producers, chicken producers around the world can use our findings, to develop diets, to enhance their farming operations, and try to steer it towards the sustainable path. So we, as myself as a person, I'm an advisor, and my lab at Purdue University, we may not be, travel everywhere in the world to say this is what is happening, but we at the same time we also depend on extension officers, that academia who have devoted their life to extension, who can pick up our paper and read our discovery and, get that to farmers and pig producers and tell them, okay, this is the latest study about this, how you can reduce nitrogen pollution and still maintain your productivity. This is what you can do. So that is our hope. And that's why most times, apart from, citations and H index or high index, we try as much to publish these journals because they are a way of communicating to the public and to the farmers. And, we also attend conferences and try to sell these ideas to pig producers and farmers in conferences. So I want to have I like a global view of the environment. Everybody has to be on board in order to achieve success, in order to conserve our ecosystem. So I wouldn't say, our research is limited to just the United States. We have a global view when we are designing our research. Yeah.
So then to make it a bit clearer to the audience at home, how does your research actually benefit the community, the wider community? Because I hear what you're saying in terms of attending conferences and speaking to the pig farmers, but it's only if they're receptive, and they're looking at the cost, because it's always the cost. If I change that, how much is it going to cost me? Am I going to be in a loss for 5 years? Hold on. Globally, there's a high cost of living. Is it actually worth it? Nah, I'm not going to do it, right? I'm just making this up. So how does your research benefit the wider community?
Well, the way our research benefits the wider community, um, to be fair, if you think from monetary perspective, if you think about the monetary perspective, our research, farmers or pig producers or chicken producers might find it challenging. Not a huge difference when it comes to the productivity level, but at least there's a little bit of it. However, the question is, what can we sacrifice? What can we give up in order to conserve our ecosystem? What can we sacrifice in order to make sure that the earth is still here for the future generation? So that is what it comes down to. Everything that comes with sustainability comes with sacrifice. I'm not sure if I'm using the correct term here, but the truth is it comes with sacrifice, trying not to burn a lot of fuel, trying to go green. All those comes with a lot of sacrifice. It comes with going from what we consider as the norm to what can really benefit the environment. So the question fundamentally is, what are we willing to give up in order to conserve the earth? So I think the big deal is to make sure that we enlighten people on the benefits of conserving the earth, the benefit of sustainability, the long-term effect, of sustainability. So you are very right. Some people, some farmers might be reluctant to accept these new methods because they feel like this old method, I can just take it and I've been used to this, and I'll probably even get more money. But at the same time, I think in the world or globally, we must start looking at long-term effects of our actions on the earth. Again, going back to the environmental side of my research.
Interesting. So I hear you. I'm going to move on to this word because it would take us more into your research. So what is nucleotide?
Oh, good question. Well, nucleotides, I would say, have been, before this interview, I've been trying to find a way to explain nucleotides without sounding so scientific. So I would say that nucleotides, just think about nucleotides as like fuel for biological processes.
Okay.
For instance, nucleotide make up the RNA and DNA of our body. Nucleotides such as ATP, adenosine triphosphate, serve as energy. It serves as energy for metabolic and biological processes in the body. So nucleotides, they are very broad, but fundamentally, they play crucial role in bodybuilding. They play crucial role in energy metabolism, such as ATP. They play crucial role in cellular growth and proliferation, or let's say cellular division. So nucleotides are just like these molecules that play fundamental roles in biological functions. And when we say biological functions, all living things have biological functions, either growth, development, reproduction, everything like that. Nucleotide play a role in it. So they are molecules that have fundamental role in biological functions.
Thank you very much for explaining that. So looking at your research then, you're looking at pigs, baby pigs. I'll call them baby pigs for the sake of argument. And, why pigs?
Good. Wow. Good question. So pigs are wonderful models for humans. A lot of research has shown very strong positive correlation between variables you measure in pig and that of human. So if you look at most research that are done on humans, pigs are very good model, meaning that whatever we test on pig, we most likely get similar results in humans.
Okay.
So for most nutritional studies, we use pigs because they are very good model. Let's say, for instance, you are trying to check maybe a company manufactured or produced like baby feed or baby, what do we call it? Like all this baby milk. Sorry, I'm kind of out of touch with the right word here.
No,
All
baby
these,
milk is fine.
yeah, baby milk, all these baby formulations,
Yeah.
and like all these companies that produce that. If you want to test the effect of that milk on
Mhm.
any, on humans without using babies, I'm not sure most people will release their babies to test products. But then you can use pigs and hoping that the result you get in pigs, you get very similar results in humans. So for the most part in nutritional experiment, we go with pigs because pigs, again, they are wonderful models for digestibility studies, for nutritional studies in general. Yeah, they are good models.
So you mentioned chickens as well. Is that similar?
Well, chickens, relatively, pigs are better models. Okay.
Okay.
For human studies, pigs are better models. We do chickens basically on production aspects, like, okay, how can we improve chicken productions? But another thing why we chose pig, especially for my own research, is because when it comes to protein levels in diets,
Right.
pigs have better response. You can easily get like more significant response in pigs relative to chickens. So feeding the pigs respond, more significantly to protein levels in diets relative to chickens. So that's why we went with pigs for this particular experiment and most of my studies.
Right. And just for everybody at home, you went through ethics and you filled in the right, paperwork, and that was approved legally, and they're well looked after, the
Absolutely.
pigs and the chickens.
Absolutely. I mean, we care so much about our pigs and our chickens. We have guidelines that are, we have regulations that are guiding us when we carry out this experiment. So we went through the approval, the due process at Purdue University, and we followed, all the guidelines we should in our study. Yes, we did that.
So during your study, have you had any pigs pass away?
Well, yes, yes. And but typically we always make sure that we care as much as possible for the pigs. If any pig shows any sign or symptom of sickness, we have on-site veterinarian that's kind of attend to these pigs. Okay. But like every other life, sometime, even in pig production and chicken production, sometimes, and even humans, some babies just don't make it to term. Some babies, unfortunately, we have to die or would die. So, but as professionals, we try to care as much as possible for the pigs, and we call on the vet if we notice anything because they are specialists and they always do their best. But unfortunately, yes, we have maybe one or two pigs that die, baby pigs like you call them, that don't make it. Yeah, we do have that
So,
sometimes.
in terms of your research, you're looking at pigs from the age of 0 to 7, was it?
Yes, well, we call them post-weaning pigs. So usually they are with their mothers from the first day to like till day 21. Typically, mostly in the US, we wean pigs at the age of 21 day. So when we are reporting in our research, I think I wrote day 0 to 7. That is the 0 to 7 of my own study. So at that day 0, they are like 24 days old.
Okay.
So we don't start study just the moment they are born. No, we let them stay with the mother till day 21. Then after weaning or day 21, we give them, very good diet for the first 3 days to make them feel at home and settle down. Then we can start our study, 3 days. We always have 3 days of adaptation period. So by the time we started our study, they were 24 days old.
So the pigs that don't, we'll say piglets or baby pigs that don't actually adapt to the 3 days, do you return them to mum, or do you try and extend the period to get them to adjust?
Well, yes, you have two options. The pigs, typically you give them more time to adapt. Sometimes we go 5 days of adaptation. Sometimes we can go as long as 10 days of adaptation. So at the end of the day, pigs are weaned, and but you have to give them enough time to adapt. Yes. So if you notice a pig is not adapting, it's typically maybe there is a sickness going on. So you have to find out. You have to know what is really the root cause, and then you can address the root cause. So you have to know what's the root cause, because returning it back to mom may not even help anyways. So you have to really know. That's when you employ the service of the vets, and you are like, okay, this pig is showing some signs of sickness and looking like it's not adapting. We won't be using it in this study. So what's the root cause? So typically that's what's happened. Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of your research then, what are the 3 limitations that you've identified?
Well, the limitations with my research generally, that's a good question. I'm trying to think deeply now. Well, one of the limitations I would say is having enough manpower, because when it comes to feeding the pigs, and especially because for my research the feeding is not automated. So I have to go in every day and feed them and make sure they are fine, check the water system and make sure the water systems are working. So I'll say that having enough manpower definitely it's a limitation. But hey, I'm very happy to do that because I enjoy what I do. So I would say manpower definitely it's a limitation. Yeah.
So have you named the baby pigs if you're spending so much time with them?
Oh yes, yes, yes. I do actually. I love baby pigs a lot. I do, and even the heavier pigs I do, and I have names for them. But it's typically in Yoruba, which is like the language that is spoken in the southwestern part of Nigeria. That's my native language. But yes, I do name the baby pigs. I interact with them. They have this way of nibbling on your feet, on your clothes, and yes. Pigs can be very playful. They are very intelligent. Pigs are very intelligent. They play a lot. They interact, and they love to eat. Pigs love to eat. They love to eat. They eat a lot. So yes, very nice interaction with pigs. Yeah.
So I can never get mad if someone goes, "You eat like a pig, Norma," because
No, I
I
won't.
do
I
eat a
wouldn't.
lot.
I wouldn't. I mean, I'm all for foodies because pigs are foodies. I mean, if your pig is not eating, that means there's a problem because pigs like to eat. Yes.
So, you mentioned one limitation. We still have 2 more to go. So what are the other 2 limitations?
Oh well, this kind of a difficult question than I thought. I think manpower. Which other limitations? If I can get a moment to answer that, I'm trying to think now.
No. You've
I
got
feel
all
like
the time.
I loved every bit of my research so much that I never really, looked into the limitation. And the other limitation I could point out, it's very, technical, or let's say scientific. But if I'll go with that, I would say that the other limitation will be, the maybe number of pigs, of baby pigs that are available to us for research sometimes. So in most biological research, the larger your sample size, the better your data. Yeah, the larger your sample size, the better your data. So for the most part, I'm not saying that our data is invalid, it's very valid because we had enough power, but I just know that if we had more sample size, in fact, we would have been in a better position. So typically, the number of pigs that are available, or baby pigs like you call them, that are available for research, can sometimes be limiting.
Right.
So the more, the better. Typically, coming from a statistical perspective. And the last thing I would say is sometimes trying to separate the response that you got at the end of the study. So the questions you typically get is, you supplemented nucleotides. So are you sure it's the nucleotide that is working or the amino acid that is working? So, you get all these questions that really go deep. And to answer these questions, we have to do, a bunch of other studies in order to answer these questions. So I'll say that is currently a limitation right now. After my first study, we have done a couple of other studies trying to answer these follow-up questions.
Right.
So, at the end of my first study, that was also a limitation, that I had some questions that I needed to do more research in order to be able to answer. And that's the way science goes. So, yeah.